All right, boys and girls, we are ready to move on to the story in our reading lesson today. I am so excited. We have a great story to read today in our Zach and Ann readers. Today, we're going to be reading the story, The Tent. In this story today, our characters, Zach and Ann, are going to have a little camp out in their backyard. Before we read this story, we're going to take a picture walk. This is going to help us learn some information about our story, get your mind set on the story, and help you make some predictions. In this picture, let's see what we can learn. It looks like Zach and Ann are still setting up the tent. They're not quite ready to have their camp out. It looks like it's still daytime, but they do look excited. Oh, I'm going to give you some think time for our next picture. Okay, let's talk about this illustration. It looks like there's a big problem. It looks like the tent is not still standing. Something caused it to fall. And if I look very closely and take my time, in the background, it looks like wind. Maybe the wind knocked the tent down. That might be your prediction right now. Oh no. Let's look very closely at our next picture. This illustration is now showing me that it has started to rain. Poor Zach and Ann. And our last illustration. I'm going to zoom in a little closer so you can see. I still see rain. I see Zach and Ann trying to put the tent back up. I still see lots of wind. Ooh, but I do see some bugs and some critters. All right, we are almost ready to read The Tent. Before we read our story, though, I do want to go over some sight words that are going to be in your story today as we read. Our first sight word is once. This is our new tricky word that we just learned, once. I once had a camp out in my backyard. Here's our next tricky word that you are going to see in our story today. Was. I was excited to have my camp out. Was. And our last tricky word that you're going to see in our story is the word from. From. I got a tent from my mom and dad for my birthday. There is a word that Miss Nakane wants to talk to you about today. One of our learning targets during our reading story is I can blend sounds to read words. You're going to see this word in your story today. I'm going to give you some think time to see if you can blend those sounds to read our word. Good, here we go. Oh, I see a blend. Slug, slug, slug. Ooh, touch your nose if you've ever seen a slug or know what a slug might be. We're going to go into our story, and Miss Nakane is going to show you a picture that might help you understand the meaning of this word. I'm going to zoom in very closely. What if I told you Anne has a slug on her shoulder? Would that help you with that word? Anne has a slug on her shoulder. Yes, you see that little critter? A slug is an animal. It's sort of like a slimy snail. Yes, but it doesn't have an outer shell. So I am so excited for us to finally read The Tent. I want you to listen closely to find out what happens to Zach and Anne's tent. All right, here we go. And why the tent falls. So we're going to go ahead and start reading our story. Our other target today is that we can answer and ask questions. So after the story, we are going to be answering and asking questions. We're going to open to our table of contents. We're going to find the tent. We're going to run our finger all the way to the right page number, 42. All right, here we go. I am so ready to read our story today. Remember that good readers track their words. We're going to track your print today. The tent. Once Zach's dad got the kids a tent. Zach and Anne set up the tent. Then the kids sang a song. This big tent, it is the best, is the best, is the best. This big tent, it is the best, yes, it's the best. And you can make up your own little song. The kids had fun in the tent. But then a big wind hit the tent. Flop! The tent fell on Zach and Anne. Oh no, we were right in our prediction. We said a wind made the tent fall. Then Zach felt a drip. Drip, drop, drip, drop, splish, splash, splish, splash. Zach and Anne got wet. The kids set the tent back up. Ooh, Zach and Anne were not going to let a little wind and rain stop them. They set the tent back up. Let's see how the story ends. Red ants got in and bit Zach. A slug got on Anne. Once the ants and slug got in, that was it. Zach and Anne ran from the tent. I don't think that I could blame them for running away from the tent. All right. So, Miss Zakhan told you to listen to see why the tent actually fell. I want you to touch your nose if you remember why the tent actually fell. Awesome. Whisper it to yourself. Here we go. Let's go back into our story. I remember that the tent fell because a big wind hit the tent. All right, so now Miss Zakhan is going to ask you some questions about the story today. When Zach and Anne first set up the tent, were they excited? I'll give you some think time. Were they excited? Good. Whisper the answer to yourself. Awesome. Miss Zakhan is going to say yes, that Zach and Anne were excited. And the reason I know that is because I can look at this illustration. I can look at Zach's face and Anne's face, and they look excited. They look like they're smiling. They're ready to have a fun sleepover outside. Here's our next question. Why does the tent fall? Remember, that was our purpose for reading today. Awesome. Did you whisper your answer in your hand? Good. Let's go to that part of the story again. Remember, the tent fell because a big wind hit the tent. Okay, here's our next question. How do Zach and Anne get wet? Some think time. Good. Whisper the answer in your ear. Okay, here we go. Remember, Zach and Anne got wet because of the rain. It started to rain on Zach and Anne. Oh, and here's our last question. What gets in the tent? Think time. Whisper it in your hand. Good. Let's get ready to check your thinking. Yes, look at this. Red ants got in the tent. And a slug, that was our word today. Remember, slug got in the tent. Now, part of your learning target was to answer questions, but also to ask questions. So right now, you could ask your mommy and daddy a question about the story, such as, who were the main characters? Or maybe the setting? Yeah, let's talk about the setting. We could say daytime in the backyard. We could say afternoon in the backyard. Now I'm going to challenge you to think of an I wonder question. I wonder... Ooh, this is Miss Knockhand's I wonder question. I wonder what Zach and Anne did after they ran from the tent. Did they go inside and still have a fun sleepover together in the house? Did they watch a movie? Did they play games? That's my I wonder question. Now we're going to move to our questions that we've been practicing, like big first graders, where we have to bubble in our answers. Are you ready? Very good. Ms. Knockhand is going to use a marker just so you can see my answers a little more clear, but I want you to get your pencil ready. We're going to start with our tripod grip. Remember our song? Pointer finger, thumb, middle finger wrapped. Now we are right on track. Good. Ready to write. Ready to write. Number 1. Where did Zach and Anne get the tent? Let's circle that question word, where. Where did Zach and Anne get the tent? Let's go over our choices. And remember, we can only pick one. From a shop, from the shed, from Dad. Touch the answer that you think is correct. All right, let's go back into our story and let's check our thinking. Oh, look at the beginning. At the beginning of the story, once Zach's dad got the kids a tent. Ooh, we learned that information at the beginning. So right now, if you chose from Dad, give yourself a quiet clap. And we're going to practice bubbling in that circle, very neatly staying in the circle, just like a big first grader getting ready for next year. Okay, here we go. Next question. Now this one looks a little different. We do not have choices for this question.